morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for asking me and inviting me to introduce our speaker today. I'm going to read because what you just did, I can't remember anything. Thank you very much, and happy birthday, Daphne. Okay, good morning, and thank you for inviting me to introduce the speaker of the day. Excuse me. The topic our speaker has chosen for today is about handling life's everyday, sometimes unusual challenges. Originally from Ontario, with a background in education, this speaker has brought to our island some of the most amazing healing modalities in the energy healing world today. One of these modalities, which she also teaches here in Newfoundland, is soul genesis, which has the ability to heal at a soul level. Judith actually owns the rights to soul genesis. As a practitioner myself, I have had the opportunity of watching my clients heal at a very, very deep soul level, personal, profound healings. For example, they've changed negative thoughts into positive actions. The speaker for today is Judith Royal of Royal Treatment Wellness. I'm very nervous, and I'm never nervous. I would at this time also like to thank Judy for agreeing to come and uplift us today and start our weekend off on a very positive note. I urge everyone here to refer to her website, Royal Treatment Wellness, ROYLE, treatmentwellness.com, for further information on her background, services, and courses offered. Without further ado, please welcome Judith Royal with I've Got This.
Initially, we have the projector there, but somehow technical problems arise and we cannot use the screen. But I'm sure Judith will equally enlighten us just with her presentation without the slides.
All right. Put that here. Great. All right. Okay. The universe has a wondrous way of making a point, and I have.
Use the microphone there.
Okay.
Use your hand.
I'm going to try to use it this way. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I have noticed that every time I have a talk or I teach a specific point, the universe has a way of saying, really? And, of course, we had technical difficulties. My pretend niece over there tried to sort it out, but couldn't. And as she left the stage, she patted me on the shoulder and she said, "You've got this." Have you ever had a time or a moment where you know you have to do something, but you really don't want to do it? In fact, you'd rather have a root canal. And every time I have mentioned this to friends or family, they always say to me, well, you've got this. It's okay. You've got this. And I kind of wonder why they're saying that, because there's a voice inside of me that says, I can't do this. So it made me take some time to think about what it is that I do to help me get through or push through that feeling that I just can't do it. And being the storyteller that I am, have I got a story for you? And this, let me set the scene for you. It starts around the trip back from Sedona. I've been going to Sedona, Arizona for the last 2 winters because I fell on my new knees on freezing ice and nearly broke them. So I thought, okay, that's it. I'm not doing winters in Newfoundland. So I have a dog, so that's why I drive. I can't possibly leave her behind. And so I did this 5-day trip back to Ontario, and I usually spend a month in Ontario with family. And my mom was doing the downward spiral. She was getting close to her time, and she was in and out of the hospital all winter. And when I arrived home, she was very, very weak. So I would go to the hospital every day and feed her. And I had that whole month with her. And I was really thrilled that I had that one-on-one time with her before she actually did pass. And so I went, and I had to make a decision whether I was going to stay in Ontario and wait or move on to Newfoundland. And we really had no idea. The Bolingbroke women are tough women, and they've been known to fight to the bitter end and take their time. So I decided I'll go back to Newfoundland, and if I have to, I'll fly back to Ontario. So I had that whole drive back from Sedona. I had the month with my mom. I think there's something going here.
Oh, that's mine. I'm sorry. I'm
That's
apologize.
okay. I'm like a grade 1 student. I'm easily distracted. So I had the drive. Then I started my drive back to Newfoundland. And I was so lucky, my next door neighbor drove to Port aux Basques, so I wouldn't have to make that long trip from Port aux Basques over to Witless Bay. So I was so grateful for that. But by the time I actually arrived home, I was exhausted. Exhausted on so many levels. And I also had renovations done during the winter. I had my kitchen cupboards done, and which meant, and I didn't know this before I left, it meant taking everything out of the kitchen cupboards. So my friend and cleaning lady had to do all that while I was in Sedona. And then I had the floors done as well. So everything in the house had to be packed up, and we put it in my treatment room. So much of it had been unpacked. Judy did that, but there were a lot of things that she didn't know where to place. So I had all of that ahead of me too. So I walked in the front door, and I looked around, and I looked at my van that was packed to the hilt, and I just said, I can't do this. And I sat for 3 days, I might add, and did absolutely nothing. I was frozen. I was so overwhelmed I couldn't do anything. And sometimes that will hit you that way, is you're just so overwhelmed you can't do anything. And poor Mary Lou, she'd stand there wringing her hands. Well, would you like me to help you unpack the car? No, it's all right, I'll do it. Well, is there anything I can do? No, that's fine. So for 3 days, I ate at Mary Lou's house because I couldn't even make food for myself. And I'd trundle on home, go to bed, and get up the next morning. Well, you can only do that so long. And I thought, you know what, I just can't do this. So what are you going to do, Judy? You know, suck it up, Buttercup. And I heard this voice say, just take one baby step, even if it's a baby step. And so I coaxed myself just to go over to the kitchen and open the drawer, and then the voice said, take the stuff out, organize it, throw out the stuff you don't want, and push the drawer back in again. All right. And so that's what I did. And that's how I got through that whole mess of unpacking, and with my van, my cupboards, the house, the whole ball of wax. So it actually took me 10 days to do normally what I would do in 4 days. So it was learning a lot about patience as well, which is not my strong suit. Now, the next thing that I thought of was I'm very good at making excuses when I don't want to do something. And I've also had clients pull the same stunt as me as well. And what it actually means is whatever you say the problem is, it isn't. And so, as Alec was saying, our unconscious mind actually drives behavior. So we think we make decisions on a conscious level, but it's actually our unconscious mind that decides for us how we're going to respond, how we're going to behave. And to such an extent that when we know we have to do something, and the unconscious mind is not about to allow us out of the comfort zone, things will happen that will actually create situations where you can't participate. It's really quite legitimate, but it's really at an unconscious level this is operating. When I was moving from my Mount Albert house in Ontario, I had this beautiful house, they called it the Enchanted House, and I did my work from that home as well, and I had beautiful gardens, and I just loved that house. Whenever I went away, I could hardly wait to get home again. And I was on my own. I managed to pay the bills and keep up for 3 years because the 3 years before, the real estate market really wasn't much of anything. And so I managed for 3 years, and then all of a sudden the real estate market shot up. So I thought, you know what, you've got to downsize because you can't spend your whole life paying bills just so you can live in this house that you adore. Well, it's okay to make that kind of decision. It's a different thing to actually follow it through. And so my cousins, who are sort of woven in and out of these stories, because I don't know what I would do without them, they suggested that I have a garage sale. And I had this long 90-foot driveway that was perfect for a sale. And so all my beautiful antiques and my artwork, crystal, all that had to be sold. And so I understood that at an intellectual level. However, when it came to the day, and thank goodness I had 2 cousins, I had a migraine to beat the band, to such an extent that I was throwing up with regularity. And so it took me right out of the whole scenario. So my cousins had to actually work this whole garage sale by themselves, to the extent that they had to knock on the bathroom door to ask what a certain item was priced at. But we managed to get through that, and that's a prime example of my unconscious mind saying, you know, I thought maybe it wasn't that I didn't want to sell a house. I thought that was what my problem was. But the real problem was I was at a crossroads in my life. And I was not only downsizing, but I was actually going in a different direction that was just for me, for my personal and spiritual growth. And that was pretty darn scary. So what did I do? I threw up. The other thing that I find very difficult is to I've learned to ask for help. And people say to me, you're just so stubborn. You won't accept any help. And I have to admit, that is part of it. But the other part is, I've been on my own for a long time. I'm just used to doing things for myself. And I feel, I guess, guilty when I have to ask somebody else for help. There's this little voice in the back of my head, you know that critical parent? Oh, you wuss, you can do that. Suck it up and do it. I tell myself more times than not to suck it up. You'd think I would be very thin by the number of times I suck it up. But, you know, when you think of it, over a period of time, when I've actually needed help, I might have said, oh my goodness, I really need help. I don't actually ask people for help, but the help is there. It's really unbelievable when you think of it. Mary Lou was there for my drive back to Port aux Basques. When I had my hip operation in July, it was 2 days' notice. And so one of my cousins couldn't come to look after me after the hospital. And so one of them said, well, why don't you ask Betty? I said, oh, I can't ask Betty. She's got her own family. Well, why don't you just ask her? I mean, it couldn't hurt to ask her. She could only say no. And I'd be willing to bet she would really like to do that. So I called Betty, and she was right on that. And so she had the name Nurse Ratchet. She's about the only one that could get away with putting me in my place. So there was Betty, and she stayed with me. It was supposed to be for a week, but she stayed for 2 weeks. And I had the added plus that she had been through all this before, so she knew how to take care of me, but she also knew when to push me a bit. Joanne, my other Newfoundland sister, she was always coming over with soup or a plate covered with foil just when I didn't feel like cooking or didn't feel capable of doing it. One of my cousins, the one who helped me with the garage sale, she couldn't come when Betty was there, but she came afterwards when Betty left. So she filled that space. She came for 4 days. And of course, these are people that I don't have to worry about entertaining. They just are. They just come and they just fit in. And so she was there for 4 days. Then my other cousin, who had said right from the beginning she would be there, she had family issues, and so she couldn't come. So she just went home yesterday, actually. She came for 2 weeks. We called her the evaluator inspector. And I had gone through a couple of weeks where I just fell right off the grid. And it was the wallowing in self-pity 2 weeks. And so her husband said, you know what, I think maybe you better get down there. So she came for the express purpose to make sure that I was back on track and I was fine. So we had just a lovely visit for the last week or so. And so really, if you just get out of, as long as I got out of my own way, the help was there. I didn't actually have to ask for it most of the time. Universe provides this for us. All we have to do is ask. And it doesn't have to be out loud. It can be just from your heart, what comes from your heart. Does that make sense? Oh, good. I'm not nuts then. The other thing that I've come to realize is that people really are basically good. I've had people say to me, you drive down to Sedona, how many days? Oh, 5.5 days, and if the weather's bad, it could take a week. And that's, aren't you afraid to drive, to travel by yourself? And I always say, no, I'm really not, because I just assume that I'm going to get the help that I need along the way, and people are good. And Americans have such a reputation, but I have to, about being loud and demanding and so on. They were all, and I have to say every single one of them, just beautiful people that were there to help when I needed it. And there was that one day, do you remember the torrential downpour in Missouri last year, where the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers overflowed? That day that I drove in the rain, I could hardly see, and my knuckles were like this. I had to peel my fingers off the steering wheel. And of course, Chardonnay just sat in the front seat observing everything. You're doing fine, Jude, just carry on. And I pulled into this motel, and the lady on the front desk said, you look as though you're done. And I said, I am. I'm just so glad I'm here. She said, I'll tell you what, I'll take your dog. She probably has to do her thing. I'll look after your dog. You unload the car. And who on the front desk would leave the front desk to help somebody do that? I mean, it just blew me away. So I said, thank you, and I was very gracious about it. I didn't say for once, no, it's okay, I'll do it. I was very gracious, so please write that down. Next time I'm not. Another time, this was a few years ago, I was driving down to Sedona, different route, and I heard a family next door to me getting ready in the morning to leave. So I thought, I'll wait, and there were kids. The voices way up in high G, and the banging of the doors and running back and forth, and I thought, I think I'm just going to wait until they leave before I leave. And so I waited for their car to pull out, and I had all my stuff ready, opened up the door, and the dog shot out the door. I didn't realize that next door was a fellow who had a case of 24 beer. This is 9 o'clock in the morning. I guess this was for his day's activity. And I guess the dog had startled him. And so in this voice, this very authoritarian voice said, man, it's a damn good job that my rifle's on the top of my truck, because I would have shot that dog. Now, normally I would have risen up in my full splendor and gave him a piece of my mind. But I thought, I don't think I'm going to go down that low. So I said, oh, sir, I am just so very sorry. She's harmless. She wouldn't hurt a fly. She's just protective of me, and I'm traveling on my own. Please, please forgive us. Well, all right then. And in the room he went. And that could have been a real screaming match. But actually he turned out to be an okay guy, even if he did scare the heck out of me. I've also noticed about myself that, and we all have ups and downs in life, when there are times when we've been deeply hurt or deeply offended, we have a tendency to really get attached to the story, and we tell this story over and over in our heads. I call them playing my tapes. And we also have a tendency to tell everybody else with ears the story. And my mother said to me many, many years ago, she said, you can tell your story 3 times and that's it. And so what I have found when telling the story 3 times wasn't enough for me, I really had to do something about it. And so it's I can either tell the story 40,000 times and look for the sympathy that I deserve, or I have a tendency to fall off the grid. That is, I just disappear. And people who are plugged into me know when I do this, because I get email messages, I have a feeling that there's something up with you. Are you okay? And I feel like writing back and saying, just leave me alone, I'm all right. But it's just people who care about you, and it's just a different way of coping. And falling off the grid is not healthy either, which I have found. And I remember one time I was attending a course in Ontario, and it was to upgrade my qualifications for coaching. And the teacher, who has been my mentor ever since, just a wonderful man. And speaking of being plugged in, he certainly plugged into me and I'm plugged into him. He had observed something I had did during something I had done during a break time. And what I had done was, I guess the previous activity didn't sit too well with me, so I went back to my seat, got my cell phone out, and started checking my email. So of course the head was down, I had disengaged with the group, and this is how I was processing not being too pleased. And so he said, obviously he was watching, and he said, Judith, you want to come up here? So I went up to the front, and we were having this lovely conversation. I just knew he was getting to a point. I just wanted to see what it was, and I had a feeling it wasn't something I wanted to hear. And so he said, have you noticed a pattern of yourself? And I said, no. What do you mean? And he said, well, I noticed that whenever you are called on your stuff, you disengage, and you don't participate, you don't listen to what they have to say, you don't like it, so you just disengage. And I said, yeah, I know. He said, well, you know what? Knowing isn't doing. Well, that didn't sit well with me either. So I said, And as I turned away, I said, asshole. And I couldn't believe what had come out of my mouth. I was mortified. I looked at him with these deer eyes what is it? The deer eyes in the lights. And he looked at me, and he couldn't believe that had come out of my mouth. And then we just started to laugh, and we couldn't stop laughing. And so I spent the next 2 weeks of the course apologizing. Every time I saw him, I'm so sorry. Oh, please forgive me. It was my unconscious mind speaking, not my conscious mind. He said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So what did he do? He used me as an example for every class since then about not wanting to be called on your stuff. So, and he did it in front of me too. Yikes. Have you noticed the way you were brought up, that you weren't really allowed to express emotion? And that's another thing, Joyce. No, it's okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's okay. I'll pick it up when Was that gracious enough? we're all at an age now where we realize what happens when we suppress emotions, we push them down. They pop back up to the surface at the most unusual times, and we respond or react in ways that surprise us, like the asshole thing. And what I have discovered is that all emotions need to be processed, all of them, even the ones that we call negative, like fear, anger, sadness, rage, shame, guilt, all of those feelings that we don't like to feel. But if we allow that emotion to just run through us, experience it, let it flow through and out through the soles of our feet, to have Mother Earth recycle it, because it's got to go somewhere. It's a much healthier way of dealing with an emotion. And for those of us that have never allowed us that gift to do that, we actually have to really be consciously aware of when we're experiencing one of those emotions, and allow ourselves to process it, rather than saying, okay, no, I am light. I am a being of light. We can take that shadow side and just shove it somewhere else. Because I'm a being of light. I teach soul genesis. I'm special. And it just doesn't work. And I found that when my mom did actually pass away, and on August 12th, she was buried on her birthday. And because I had had my surgery and I was on blood thinners, I was not allowed to fly back. And so I was just devastated I was not able to do that. And so my brother said, well, you know, the funeral home can keep her preserved, I guess would be the right word, for a couple of weeks. So if you can come in a couple of weeks, we'll wait until then to have a memorial service. So the more I thought of it, and of course, at that point, I was going through a time where I was thinking, you know what, I'm not going to be any different. I'm going to be called guilt for the rest of my life. And I thought, what am I going to do if in 2 weeks I still can't fly back? And really, it's not fair to everybody else in Ontario. So I came up with this wonderful idea. Go ahead and have the funeral, but Skype me in. Because technology is so wonderful these days that really energy knows no distance. You can be there. And so I said to my brother, if you can organize my being Skyped in, I think you should go ahead and have the funeral. And I also had a son with 2 grandchildren. And my granddaughter had never experienced death before and had been very close to my mother. And so, you know, you sort of have to think about everybody that's involved in this, not just me and the fact that I couldn't go back. So it did work out. We had this wonderful pastor at the church who worked with me, and we had a wonderful chat the day before the funeral. I put it out there that if anybody wanted to join me, that I would love it if they would, and I'll serve lunch afterwards. And I was really surprised. I had a whole house full. And so I was so concerned about the Skyping thing, people arriving, people feeling comfortable in my home, the lunch was okay, and it would be served hot. I really didn't have a chance to process those emotions at all. And, you know, it's interesting. That house full I refer to as my Newfoundland family. They were the people that have been clients for a number of years since I moved here. They're people that I call my Newfoundland sisters, my pretend niece over there. And you know, family doesn't have to be blood. This is what I've found too, and probably what the universe, or one of my life lessons was to be, is to find out that family doesn't necessarily have to be blood. But I was really caught up in everything being perfect, because it was my fault that I couldn't go back to Ontario. So I was really trying to make it a special event. And so a couple of days after that, I was, and it really, you have to say it was a lovely afternoon, wasn't it? And they were even able to take the computer out to the grave site, and I was able to watch all of that. And everybody who came to the funeral came up and had a chat with me on Skype, so I was able to talk to everybody. It was just amazing. So I was so very, very grateful. So a couple of days after that, I was sitting in my chair, daydreaming as usual, and the Skype sound on the computer went off. And I jumped up because it startled me, and I have a step up from the living room up to the hall. Well, darned if I didn't trip on the step, take a nosedive on the landing, landed on my new hip, smunched my glasses into my face, so I ended up having this huge black eye, and having taken black thinners, it was black and this big. And so that's when I dropped off the grid. And that's what I figured the universe was doing to take me out so that I had a chance to process those emotions. So if you don't process them yourself, a situation will arise that forces you to do that. And so for the next 2 weeks, I wallowed in self-pity. I really have to say. I wallowed in it to the nth degree. In fact, I couldn't stop crying one night. And poor Mary Lou, she's over there with her hands wringing. Is there anything I can do? No, it's fine. Joanne's over with the meals and the soup and so on. And I just really had to let it pass. And so once I had the 2 weeks of wallowing in self-pity, it was just like a switch that went off in my head. And I thought, okay, that's it. Let's just get back on track because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And during that whole time, when I was either told what I could do and what I couldn't do, and I had to even have my shoes tied, I got to the point where I was actually told by the surgeon, he was quite pleased with my progress, I wasn't, that I could start driving again. And, but you know, it was sort of a dichotomy. On the one hand, I resented having everything being done for me. I was grateful, of course, but I really wanted to be independent again. On the other hand, it was kind of nice having all this stuff done because I didn't have to think about it. And it was nice that Mary Lou drove me everywhere, that Betty checked in with me every morning. How are you this morning, RB? That's her nickname for me. And it was really kind of nice to have all this attention because I'm not used to having all that attention. And usually it's about everybody else. So I was, in a way, kind of enjoying it. And at one point, Mary Lou and Joanne had family visiting from Calgary and Toronto. And I was invited over for dinner. And of course I said I couldn't go because I had this large black eye. And of course I couldn't possibly be seen like that. And Mary Lou said, well, nobody cares what you look like. Come anyways. Oh no. And you know, I'm particular about what I have on, my hair, the face, the whole ball of wax. So there's no way you'd catch me going out the door without my hair and face on. And so I declined very politely. So I guess around 6 o'clock, that one turned up at the door again and said, you've got to come over because Linda has had breast reconstruction and you should see her boobs. They are beautiful. So I thought, oh, well, that piqued my interest. I was over there like a duck. So that's how she got me to go over. And and of course I got involved in the conversation too. And you know, once we start telling stories, it's like who can outdo each other with the funniest story. So we were sitting around the table, and all the fellows had gone home, and it was just us. And just listening to them talk, 3 out of the 4 women had had cancer or was currently dealing with cancer. And of course the conversation was about where they were at this point in their life. And And I turned to one of them and I said, and I didn't realize it until it came out of my mouth. You know, I gotta watch what comes out of my mouth, you know, because it just pops out. I turned to one of them and I said, you know, I don't think I realized what a hit my confidence has taken. And she said, yeah, well, I'm not surprised. And I just sort of left it at that and I thought, where did that come from? Anyways, so they were going on about where they were in this particular point in their life and what they were currently dealing with. And all of a sudden it hit me. These women are dealing with cancer. And you've got a frickin' black eye. What is the matter with you, woman? I mean, really? And so that really put things in perspective. So, you know the saying, you can't change behavior until you change perspective. And so that's what changed how I responded and how I behaved from that day on. The other thing I have noticed along the way is we really have to be, and you know, you hear all of this about gratitude. You know, you shift a negativity by being grateful. Write down 5 things that you're grateful for. We know all about that, so I'm not going to get into that. But we really need to not only be grateful, but we need to appreciate others and their gifts and talents and abilities. Not just make it about ourselves. And really, the day that we are territorial and afraid to give anybody else a pat in the back or a boost because it might elevate them higher than you, those days are gone. We really need to have each other's backs and help each other give a leg up. And it's all about creating an interdependent community rather than dependent. Because we are so intent on loyalty, we must have loyalty, we're very territorial. All that kind of thinking comes from a belief system that it's a fear of lack. This is mine, mine, mine. You can't have it. And really, it's the opposite that actually happens. As soon as you operate from a fear of lack and start amassing stuff that's just for you, and that could be whether it's stuff, attention, whatever it might be on any level, that's actually when you create lack. And when you work on creating abundance and helping each other, give a pat on the back instead of stab on the back, that's when you actually create not more for that person, but for yourself as well. You're helping yourself. And I do have permission to share this story. 3 years ago, I had offered a retreat, and I had brought one of my students in from Ontario to help present at this retreat. And so one of the women had registered ahead, paid, and she wasn't able to join us for the Friday night opening ceremonies, but she would be there on a Saturday. And so I noticed that she didn't turn up. And of course, I didn't have cell phones in those days. And that was 3 years ago. I just thought maybe something had happened and she couldn't come. And as it turned out, she did arrive, but it was a little late. There were cars all parked up and down the driveway and down the road, and there was no one to be seen. And so she thought that I would be annoyed with her for coming late, so she turned around and went home. And since then, she has told me that her whole life revolved around fear. She even had to have someone go to the washroom with her, that she was always afraid. And here is a woman who is just so talented, brilliant in her own right, smart, has a wonderful job, but could be manipulated and put down so easily that she really never learned to stand in her power. And so over the last 3 years, and it's taken time, she has actually done that. And she offered a workshop at my house not too long ago, and I looked at her and I thought, holy Christmas, is this the person I knew 3 years ago? Talk about standing in her power, sitting up straight, the voice projecting, and just an amazing workshop that she presented. And interestingly enough, what I got out of it all, and not that I was responsible for her coming along, we all, you know, it's an interdependent community, we were all doing that for her. When I have issues around physical issues, it's her that I call for a session, whether it's distance or hands-on. So you see, we do actually benefit from helping others. Does that make sense too? Mm-hmm. As you probably can tell, I'm a bit on the dramatic side. And what I have found is that when we get caught up in the drama, and let me tell you another story, this was another time when my cousin Liz was visiting a couple of years ago, and we were sitting watching TV, and all of a sudden I heard this thump against the sliding glass door, and it was at night. And you know how the porch lights have sort of an eerie look to them anyways? And this body was spread like this across the window, and it was my next door neighbor. So, and she's got this stark, hysterical look on her face. So, and I had just had one of my knees done, so I'm still on the cane. So I hobbled over to the door, and I could hardly tell what she was saying, but what she was trying to say was that her kayak had gone, we live on a cliff, had gone over the cliff and it's in the ocean. And she's going out to get it. Are you joking? And I said, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. Well, I can't let it go out to the ocean. That's expensive, you know. So I said, just wait for us. So I got a flashlight for Liz. I decided, okay, I better make a plan. And so I said, okay, Liz, you follow her over to the cliff, show the light down, and I'm going to go and get Larry. Larry's across the road. His wife says, oh, yes. Anytime Mary Lou or Judy ask Larry for anything, he's across the street like that. Oh, no, if I ask him to do anything, he's busy. So I went over to Larry's house, and I'm yelling and screaming. He can't tell what I'm saying, so he's, oh, okay, he gets it. He pulls on his rubber boots, and he fires across the road. Now, consider this. My dog uses Mary Lou's lawn to poop on. She doesn't poop on her own property. She's not stupid. And of course, you know how dogs have a tendency to go in a certain spot? Guess where she had this spot where the thing had gone over. And Liz is trying to negotiate between the poop. And of course, I've got the cane on uneven ground. I'm convinced that I'm going to end up face first in it. Anyways, the long and short of it was they got that darn thing out of the water and up, and Larry pulled it up over the hill. My point is, cut the drama and make a plan. Because, you know, we waste so much time being dramatic about it and wondering what we're going to do. Just take a breath. This is what I find for myself. Take a breath and say, okay, what am I going to do about this? What's the bottom line? How am I going to make this work? And it works every time. Well, at least it helps you get control of your emotions. Probably you have found this out too along the way, especially at our age, is that you've got to look after your own needs before anybody else's. And we all have defined ourselves in a certain way, whether it's as a mother, as a daughter, your work position. For years, I was a principal and defined myself as that. And even when I'm stressed, I will start dreaming about school now. And I retired in 2001. So it really, it was a very important part of me and who I was and my life. But what happens is when you define yourself as not who you really are, you have a tendency to look after everybody else's needs except your own. And then what happens is you expend enough energy to the nth degree that and you've got your back against the wall, that there is nothing left to give anybody else. So not only are you shortchanging yourself, but you're shortchanging the others that you love. So really, to be of service, you have to look after yourself first. And I think I learned that the hard way when I moved to Newfoundland, because people had said to me, "So you have family here in Newfoundland?" "No." "Well, do you have friends here?" "No." "Well, why are you here?" And the only answer I can give is, it was just a calling. It was something I needed to do for me. And my son wasn't too happy about that. But they were busy with their own lives. Really all I was doing was standing there, wringing my hands, asking what can I do? And so I have realized that by really looking after what I needed to do for me to be my authentic self was to move to Newfoundland, whatever that meant. And somebody else actually made this observation. Had I not done, it was Liz, my cousin. Had I not moved to Newfoundland, I would never have become the person I have become, because I would have always been thinking about somebody else back in Ontario. Now I'm just as bad as with my Newfoundland family, and my clients probably worry about them more than I worry about myself, but I catch myself now. So do give that some thought when you are at the point of exhaustion, and ask yourself, are you really looking after your own needs first? Yeah. How many people are starting to do that? Yeah. See? Only a few. So I ask you to really take a good look at that, because some of us are at an age where we don't have excess energy to expand. And we're here for a certain purpose, and we should be living out that purpose. And if we're worried and worrying about everybody else but ourselves, we will never live to what we were supposed to be here for in the first place. That's my theory. The other thing that I need to be really careful of, because I don't often do this, well I do now, but I didn't used to, and I got myself into a whole lot of trouble, is establishing boundaries. And what I wasn't particularly good at was, and what I found out since, is when somebody shows you who they truly are, believe them the first time. Don't keep making excuses and say, well, that's just the way they are, or they're not like that with me. Or, you know what, I can change that. I can help them grow and evolve. It is what it is. And that's fine if you can accept somebody the way they are. Just make sure that you have a boundary that you will only go that far in getting involved. Because what happens is you get hurt. And then you step back and you say, well, what did I do? Well, you didn't do anything. You just didn't pay attention to the messages they were giving you. Years and years ago, after I retired, I set up my business in a little storefront down the road in Mount Albert. And my dear friend, who was in the same work as well, she was working with me. And the place was so small that if she had a client in, I would go home, and then when she was finished, she'd go on her way. So we sort of used the storefront as a little stopgap. And I would go after she finished and sort of tidy up and whatnot. But one time, I guess I arrived too early, and she was giving out brochures to the client and telling them that if they went to her home, she would reduce the price. And of course, as entrepreneurs, that is a no-no. That's just with a business associate. And then to find out your dear friend is doing that, that is devastating. And so there was a great big hooferall about that. And as you know, and as I've demonstrated, people don't like to be called on their stuff. And so we went our separate ways. And I guess it was last year, her daughter and I reconnected over Facebook. And so her mother contacted me as well, and we had a lovely conversation on the phone. But I guess the expectation was that we were going to pick up where we left off. And I thought about it, and I thought, if there's anything you've learned, is that things probably haven't changed, and people do change, but I haven't seen that demonstrated to me. So I think I'm just going to be very polite and chat, but I'm not going to pick things up where they left off. And that's having some respect for myself. And also, we have, and I'm sure you've heard this many times, is that we vibrate at a certain frequency. And what we want to do is surround ourselves with people who are vibrating at our frequency or higher. And so the intention is that you're always trying to raise your vibration. If you hang out with people who have a dense vibration, you're going to get pulled down to their level. And so that's why people come and go out of your life, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all grow at different rates, at different paces, and so it's our job to live up to our highest potential. And so we surround ourselves with people who live up to their highest potential as well. Yes? And you know, not everything has to be a struggle. And it's the way we've been brought up. It's a core wound. And our thinking is, our belief system is, nothing is worth having unless it's a struggle. In fact, it's not, if you acquire it with grace and ease, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And so the realization is that, you know, you can acquire things or purpose or whatever you want in life without so much struggle. But unless we create the struggle, we don't think that it's of value. I had a coach who was helping me become more familiar with social media. I have to tell you, they've dragged me in kicking and screaming. And I was going on and on and on with him, saying, you know, this is just too hard. I can't do this. Oh, and it keeps backfiring on me. Like this morning, I just can't do this. I think maybe I'll just hire someone to do it. And he said, Judy, what is your problem? I said, what do you mean? It's very hard. And he said, you can Google anything. It's not that difficult. You can find out how to do these things very easily. So why don't you try telling yourself that it's not that hard and you can do this with grace and ease. And sure enough, once I did do that, it did become a little easier, although I do like a bit of drama around what the technology and what doesn't work.
Excuse me, Judith.
Yes?
To wrap this up, because the manager has to pay out some money.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I had gone on that long.
No, it's okay. Yeah, just wrap. Yeah.
Okay. And you know what? Sometimes we just have to fly by the seat of our pants. We can't plan for everything. And you know, no decision is wrong. Any decision you make is just fine. And actually, the decisions we make are probably what we've contracted for before we even came into this physical world. So don't worry so much about making the wrong decision. All right. If I could have just 5 more minutes? Okay. What I would like to do is do a little meditation with you and install these affirmations, these points to consider, and have you actually think about it and take it in as something that you're really going to consider. And Betty has handouts afterwards with all of them listed, so you can paste them to your forehead, say them to yourselves in the morning and in the evening. And as Alex said, the more you repeat them, the more that you take them to heart. So I'm just going to ask you to take a deep breath and let all those worries and cares that you might have just move down through your body and out through your feet. And just be aware of the rhythm of your breath. And now close your eyes. And so I'm going to make statements. And as I make the statements, you can listen with your mind's eye or say them with me in your mind's eye. And actually, you might think of a time when you actually did do this, rather than my telling you about all the times I haven't done it. And so I just want you to concentrate on listening to my voice. I approach and execute tasks with grace and ease at a pace that works for me. I seek help when I need it and know that most people are happy to be helpful. I am honest with myself, even when I am tempted to use excuses. When I am hurt by life's pitfalls, if I need to, I seek help to let that go easily and effortlessly. I allow myself to experience upsetting emotions by letting them flow through me and accept it as it is. I incorporate in my morning and nightly routine affirmations to instill confidence. I appreciate others' talents and abilities. I celebrate, support, and encourage them to live up to their potential. I problem solve by looking at all possible options and choose the best possible course of action. I understand that forgiveness is a process and may take time to integrate. I attend to my own needs first, so I can be of service to others. I establish healthy boundaries for myself and others. I am open to responding with spontaneity. And so it is. Oh my.
Ready? Okay.
Do you want me to leave now?
You can stay here for a second. I'm gonna give you something. Okay. You want to check? It's okay.
No, I'm fine.
And again, I would like to thank Judy for this morning, for starting our weekend off on a very, very, very positive note. And I'd like you all to give Judy a great hand. And if you want, another ovation.
Oh, no, no. Is this when I'm supposed to be gracious and say thank you? Thank you very much.
Before you go, Judith, we have something for you because of you helping our group, and we have a positive thinker's pin for
Oh,
you,
thank you, thank you,
and also a small token of appreciation.
thank you.
And you are also welcome to draw some names for us. This is one of the perks of our members, is when you become a member, you will be entitled to your name put into the bag for a prize. And today's prize, we have a free breakfast certificate. There are some books from our dear member Rosalind. So there are 2 books, so take one. And there's a calendar from me, 2017.
Okay.
And you can only pick one, okay? Not one name, but one of these gifts. Geraldine Lush. Geraldine? Okay. So there are 4 things for you to choose. Thank you. Thank you, Judy.
Okay.
Peggy K. Peggy. Peggy is a wonderful supporter of our club, Peggy. And I guess one of her daughters can come out on her behalf. Peggy, just wave your hand so we know where you are, Peggy. I think Sue will come out, or one of you, yeah. Oh. One of the books from Rosalind, and 1 gift certificate for breakfast. Okay. I think she's a fan of Rosalind, so she had the book. So pick a gift certificate for breakfast, I was told. Okay, thanks. Pick a name on behalf of Peggy. Terry Myers. Terry. Lisa Rowe. Lisa Rowe. Yeah. Okay, thank you every one of you coming here today. If you want to speak to our group, welcome to talk to one of our executives, and if you want to help out, you're very welcome. And if any feedbacks, I think there are forms that you can fill out, or just talk to one of us, or write to us.